This is a spoiler warning for Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. If you have not played the game, I suggest going and playing it before listening to this podcast. If you're okay with some spoilers, you can listen to the first 5 to 7 minutes of the podcast before we start going into actual deep spoilers. Thank you once again, and enjoy. Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Joystick Frequency. It's a video game podcast that doubles as a video game book club where you are a member just by listening in. I'm your host, Trent, and joining me are only one of my usual co-hosts today, Brady.
Hello.
And today we have a special guest with us, a friend of mine. This is Liam.
How's it going?
And today we're going to be talking about some Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I know last month we talked about Elden Ring, and we'll be getting that episode out as soon as we can. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about some Tiny Tina's. But before we do that, of course, we're going to go into each of our months. So, Brady, what have you been playing this month?
Yeah, so obviously I've been playing Tiny Tina's Wonderland. I've also been playing Red Dead Redemption, both 1 and 2. I started with 2 since it's a prequel, played through it, and now I'm working on 1. Those are some fantastic games, can't recommend them enough. I've played them, obviously, more than once, but it's always fun to replay. They have such great stories. Single player only, I don't play the multiplayer.
All right, Liam, what about you? Have you been playing anything interesting this month other than Tiny Tina's?
So, I've put a lot of time into Tiny Tina's, but I put even more time into Smite, as you know. I'm quite addicted, but you and I have been running through Elden Ring when we can. It's been quite enjoyable. Definitely, probably the best game of the year so far. And that's even with Tiny Tina's Wonderland. But honestly, I generally focus on 1, maybe 2 to 3 games at a time.
Yeah, that's completely fine. So this month I've actually been playing, of course, Tiny Tina's. I've completed 2 of my playthroughs for Elden Ring to get 2 of the ending achievements. And I actually also started playing this optical illusion game called Superliminal. I've seen a clip of it before and got really interested in it, and so I decided to go ahead and download and play it since it was on Game Pass. And I fell in love with this game. This game was really good. It's really cool how it tricks your mind and stuff like that. I feel like it could have been longer. I got through it pretty quickly. However, a couple of the achievements can be a little buggy, so I ended up having to run the speedrun achievements a couple more times than I wanted to. But hey, I was able to get the achievement for it, and realize that I am 17 minutes off of world record pace in a 30, and it took me 33 minutes to complete it. So that's never happening. But anyway, I really enjoyed Superliminal. Well, that's us 3, and what we've been playing. Brady, do you want to take over for Walker this since he's not here to tell us about Tiny Tina's?
Sure. Tiny Tina's is a game by Gearbox Software. Came out in March 25th, 2022. It is a continuation of the Borderlands series. It's more of a spin-off. Instead of taking the traditional sci-fi approach to a looter shooter, it is more of a fantasy series. In Tiny Tina's Wonderland, it is inspired by the game of Dungeons and Dragons. They changed it in the game to Bunkers and Badasses for copyright reasons. Tiny Tina, the character from the Borderlands series, plays the role of the Dungeon Master, or Bunker Master in this case, and takes your character, the player character, through a fantasy world where you go through a typical fantasy adventure, obviously all with the Borderlands style, and face down the terrible Dragon Lord.
This is your last warning for spoilers for Tiny Tina's, as we're about to get our general thoughts on the game, as well as going into the plot and lore of the game. So if you have been listening up to this point, this is your final warning. This is spoilers for Tiny Tina's Wonderland. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with our guest here. Liam, what are your general thoughts on the game overall?
General thoughts of the game overall. My initial score would have been a 9 out of 10. And the score has kind of diminished just in that I've been playing for quite a bit and I've run into some issues that I didn't have with other characters, and also just running into the same issues multiple times and just not really enjoying them. But for the most part, I would say the gameplay is phenomenal. The story is pretty hilarious. And in terms of actual visual appeal, I think the game looks amazing. All the mechanics for the weapons and how you reload your weapons, you spit magical dust into your shotguns, or the weapons have these auras and runestones around them, or even just the spells themselves. Each and every one of them feels unique and can be quite entertaining to just watch. So I would definitely recommend this game to not just people who are fans of the series, but to just people who want to play an interesting game.
Yeah, I feel like they got just the feel of fantasy and the magic and the arcane nature of the game, like really down pat. Especially like you mentioned with the shotguns that have like the crystal on the top that you put the dust on top of to shoot and stuff, as well as just having your grenades be spells in this game. It's kind of crazy how you go from one game where you're throwing these grenades that blow up and split into other grenades, and then in this one, instead of having a grenade, you call down a fucking meteor from the sky to blow up and scatter and just hit people.
And it was the only spell he ever used that game.
Yes, I'm a filthy calamity abuser.
I wouldn't say you're abusing it, because it's kind of dog shit if you really think about it. You cast it once and you don't get casted again for like 30 seconds.
All right, Brady, what about your general thoughts?
I would give Tiny Tina's Wonderland a solid 8 out of 10. I really loved the story. It was very funny, and it incorporated a lot of classical fantasy elements and subverted them in that typical Borderlands style. The mechanics and gunplay were pretty incredible. There were just so many great new gun styles that I don't think were in previous Borderlands games that had a real fantasy twist to them. I knew I was going to love the game when they had you start by picking up an axe, and then the next thing they gave you was a quote-unquote crossbow. There was just a pistol with the front of a crossbow taped to it. It was fantastic. The only issue I ran into, which may be more a problem with my setup than with the game itself, where there were some graphical issues. I think that's because I'm running on a first-gen Xbox One that I got like a year after Xbox One's released.
What kind of
So that
issues?
may be more of an issue with my hardware. Textures were loading super slowly. Like when I went to go see Paladin Mike, he was very pixelated and fuzzy until I got within like 4 or 5 feet of him.
I think I've had
I
similar
think that's a problem
issues.
with my hardware, not necessarily with the game. You had similar issues?
Yeah, but again, I'm also just running it on console, so it's like the game is also designed for probably the Xbox One Series X. So it's like
It's a next gen game. If you're running it on an old gen console, you kind of have to expect issues.
yeah,
I don't hold that against the game.
no, it's good to move
at all.
forward.
Yeah.
I would say that we had, me and Liam had a couple of issues that were more than just graphical issues. Like, there was a point at the end of the game.
The game auto saving all the time.
Yeah, they have no, like, save functions like they did in Borderlands 2. I don't remember Borderlands 3's saving feature specifically, but in Borderlands 2, you can just save and quit anytime. There's no save and quit in this one. It just constantly auto saves.
Every time you pick up a piece of equipment, every time like you perform any action whatsoever, it just feels like you get 20 auto saves in of a minute. It's just like constantly lags the game or makes it just for like a millisecond I'll just not have control of my character. It feels annoying.
Yeah, we got to a point in the game where it was autosaving so much and everything, it actually made a boss fight with me and Liam to where Liam actually, it was unplayable for him because he was the client, I was the host. I had to fight that boss fight alone. Like, it was actually unplayable for him and he kept lagging out and everything.
I actually got kicked from that boss fight. No. I fell through the floor because the game lagged so bad and I decided to leave.
Yeah, there were several issues with that, so. Anyway, so my general thoughts is the guys have already done a good coverage of it and everything. I enjoyed a lot of the characters and everything. We'll go more into that later on. I I did like the story. I don't think it's as good as Borderlands has gotten a story, but especially for a dumbed down version, because like they wanted this to be made for kids and everything. I feel like it was a pretty good story. It took us a couple of seconds to notice, but I do like how they dumbed down the game to where it could be everyone 10 and up, and not that mature rating that we're used to, or is it teen? I can't remember.
It is a T rating, but I think what was so appealing about like Borderlands 2, for example, is like all of the cameo references to like different media that's like adult themed.
Yeah, and instead on this one they did a good job at like making it more appealing to kids and children without exactly throwing the adult audience away. I've heard a lot of things about how people who grew up on Borderlands now have like little kids, and they're actually playing this game with their kids and having a good time about it. The game did a really good job of making a spin-off to where we got our Borderlands fix that we need every couple of years without making it seem like, hey, this is just a cash grab because we haven't made a Borderlands game in a couple years. Overall, I think I would give the game probably a 8.5 out of 10 probably currently.
That's where I'd sit on it too.
Yeah, I do I do like the game. I don't think it was as good as 2 or 3 in my opinion, but I do think it's sitting like at a solid third place in the entire series as a whole for me. But I do fault it for having issues, because the game should be able to run on these consoles if they're putting it out, so I will fault it for that slightly. Game developers should know better. And it literally just because of the issues, as well as some of the just the enemies, I felt like there wasn't enough enemy variety in this one compared to other ones. But then again, it is also like a smaller, more compact game. It actually only took like about 16 hours to complete. So
yeah, if you just ran from like the first mission to like the final campaign mission, it really probably wouldn't take you. I don't even know if it would take you that long. It's just you come to like that level wall, because like the game does have that level wall.
And I believe this was actually one of the first Borderlands games where you could reach the level cap before completing the story.
Oh yeah, and
without a ridiculous amount of grinding.
It's simply because the late game they wanted you to be at level cap so that way you could enjoy it. But I do think they added a lot of side quests that lead you to different areas to kind of capture that Dungeons and Dragons-esque adventure. Like you're going on an adventure. You're not just like it's a linear quest where it's like we're going from this area to this area to this area. It's like, oh, there's a beanstalk in the road? Oh, I wonder what this is going to lead. And then it opens up to a whole new area with like 5 or 6 different side quests in just that area alone. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's something I did. I didn't even realize until you started saying it, but now I actually feel it. Like every time you go to a new area, it's more like kind of in Dungeons and Dragons, how you go to a town and you get all these side quests, and then you finish all the side quests before you move on, or you can just have the choice to move on. And it does a really good job of balancing. Like, hey, this is side quest stuff, and hey, this is story stuff. You can do whatever you want with it, and it's not going to harm you.
And what I really like is like you said, you could get to the level cap by the end of the game, but unless you don't, the game scales with you. Like the levels match with you, so it's not like in Borderlands 2 where if you just did the standard playthrough, everything gets up to its level cap and then it stops matching your levels. You could get ridiculously over leveled and then the game stops being fun or challenging. And then like you go into True Vault Hunter mode, and it's the next set level cap. And then Ultimate Vault Hunter, it's like everything follows you. But in this game, it just follows you from start to finish, unless you get to an area where it's like, hey, you probably shouldn't be here. And I noticed that when it was like, I was at level 18 going into a new area, and then everything was level 22. And I'm like, I should probably sidetrack and go do some side quests, because I'm not meant to be here right now.
All right, so now that we've done the general topics and everything, let's go ahead and like do some like dives into more of the stuff. So like the plot and lore of this game. Brady, what did you think?
The plot and lore of this game, I really liked. One of the things I had the most fun with was the villain, the Dragon Lord, and his meta nature. He was a D&D character that knew he was a D&D character and played on the stereotype of the sadistic DM. You have that stereotype in D&D where the DM is super mean to all the NPCs and player characters. And it's fine because it's just a story, but this is a neat little twist on that where the villain was somehow sentient. And there was parts of it that I wasn't sure if it was Tiny Tina being smart or if it was just an actual sentient character, but it was a very funny twist to put on a villain. And I enjoyed that they kept him around for the post-game, for the Chaos Chambers. I also had a lot of fun with the side quests. There were so many hilarious side quests. The side quests in the King Arthur's Court area, I forget what it's called.
King Archer's. It's called the Dank Woods, I think.
The Dank Woods?
Yeah. Or something like that.
There was one side quest where you're getting teeth for the Tooth Fairy.
Yes.
Which was probably my favorite side quest in the game.
Yeah. Don't worry about what these teeth are for.
And then he kills you with it. Or he turns into a mimic and attacks you. It's fantastic. I also loved the Communist Goblins quest.
Oh, the GTFO?
The GTFO, where you're organizing
a resistance.
Marxist uprising against evil overlords, and it was beautiful.
Another good side quest was the Murphs side quest.
Oh,
yes, the Murphs.
The definitely not Smurf, definitely not copyrighted. No, not in the slightest.
They were red, not they weren't blue or anything.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, whenever they got sick, they turned blue.
Yeah, so not the Smurfs at all.
I found that mission to be very cathartic.
The Smurfs had an enemy named what? Gargamel or something like that. This guy's name
was Gargles. Yeah.
Completely different.
Completely different.
One of the best names Borderlands I think has come up with yet.
Yeah.
Gargles.
I mean, I just think it's like it was a very cathartic mission just because like everything was one shot. Like you could just fucking pop them. Yeah, it was like a balloon popping game at one point. It was just fucking great.
Yeah, actually, I played that one with Brady, and there was this point in that mission where you could come, and the spawn point is literally just like that little puddle of lake. And since they're one hit, I literally just threw. I was playing Stabomancer, so I threw my spinning blade down right on top of it and just made a Murph blender.
Yeah, you just kind of threw them into the garbage disposal.
Like, they would just jump out and immediately jump onto my blade and die and get hit. It was great.
Yeah, we just kind of sat and watched them all die that episode. We didn't do a lot of fighting.
So, going more into the plot, it's kind of interesting how they took, like, just a little thing from a DLC from Borderlands 2 and expanded and made an entire small game on it. Well, I say small. It's like more of a medium game.
It's bigger than the pre-sequel.
Yeah. I mean, late game-wise, I would say yeah.
Overall campaign, probably the same.
Yeah, probably. But I thought it was very interesting how they kept hinting the entire time at the reason Tiny Tina doesn't play Dungeons and Dragons anymore, and then they hit you with it at the end that it's like because of Roland, and they hinted at that way back in the DLC for Borderlands 2, how Tiny Tina is talking the entire time, like, "Oh, we gotta wait for this part because Roland's gonna show up and everything." And then it finally
It hits.
breaks her at the end of that DLC, and she realizes that he's not coming back anymore. But she's able to. This game is a nice homage to it because she's able to move on and DM for other people now, and we get Andy Samberg and Wanda Sykes, which two of the best characters in this game, easy. They had so many quips and one-liners that made me laugh and chuckle.
Like that one part when we were in that Zomboss area, remember, where it was like, my old nemesis, reading out loud. That was one of the best jokes in the entire game.
I did not even realize that was Andy Samberg.
Really? This whole time?
Nighthawk? Was that his name?
No, it's Valentine.
Yeah.
Valentine. I don't know why I called him Nighthawk.
Wanda Sykes is a more noticeable voice.
Yeah, I noticed Wanda Sykes. I just didn't. Now that you've said it, that's all I can hear. But at the time, I was just didn't realize it.
And then, so the plot is revolving around more of Tiny Tina's beginnings in D&D, and you go through the entire game thinking the Dragon Lord's this bad guy, and then you come to find out that he's actually the first character Tina made, and Tina wasn't happy with the decisions that she made with that character, so that character ended up turning evil, and as a result, he became the Dragon Lord. Also, for the heartstrings people out there, Roland was the DM of her first game, and because of what happened to her character, she said that she would never play again, but she'd become, I don't remember the exact quote, but become the best DM, Bunker Master is what they call it in this game, that the world has ever seen and everything. And so this entire campaign is Tina's story of how she takes her evil character and makes him the villain in her own campaign now. But it also has a weird twist at the end, to where instead of just going out and killing the bad guy, you actually befriend him, and then he becomes Lord of that Chaos Chamber.
It's like a character arc.
Yeah.
He went from hero to villain and then hero again. So he actually did a full 360.
Yeah, a full 360. Voice acted by the
Will Arnett.
By the ever wonderful Will Arnett. That one I did notice.
Yeah.
That's all I could think of the entire time was Job from Arrested Development.
Oh my god, I love that show. And I love Will Arnett. Mans is so fucking funny. I definitely say he was my favorite part of the entire game. I love Tiny Tina. She's a great character. And I love Andy Samberg and Wanda Sykes, but Will Arnett is, for me, he's up there in Borderlands characters. His character, I feel, is better than the Borderlands 3 villains, but I think just it's because it's Will Arnett. I just love the guy. He's so fucking cool.
Well, then let's just go ahead and lead that into the next topic. Who was your favorite character of this game?
Well, obviously Will Arnett for me. Definitely the Dragon Lord. I felt as an enemy, he was kind of relatable because you can kind of see where he's coming from. It must get old always being the bad guy. He's got a Wreck-It Ralph type of thing going for him where it's he's only ever seen as the villain. He's only ever the punching bag for the player. So now it's time for him to have his revenge or his respite, whatever. It's his turn. It's his turn to take control. And I think what it really is, you could look at it as the Dragon Lord represents Tiny Tina's darker thoughts and visions. Because, in her world, she doesn't have much control over her own life. In the world of Borderlands, absolutely nothing is in your control. So you feel helpless. So you get angry. And you get upset. And you get mad. So you lash out. You're aggressive. And I've been thinking about it as like maybe, just maybe, the Dragon Lord has a deeper symbolism in that respect for Tiny Tina's aggressive nature.
I could definitely see that. Hopefully, like, we get a couple YouTubers that like do a deep dive and like actually like study the game, and we can get like just some lore videos and stuff. I wish I could have a VOD video for every game franchise I like. Like, honestly, if I could get a VOD video for everything for like obviously he does the Dark Souls series, but like the Borderlands series, the BioShock series, hell, even like one-off games like Prey and stuff. I would love to have like just one guy like that deep dives every game and finds all the little secrets about it. Anyway, that's a shout out to Vadi Vidya. If you
Friend of the channel.
no, he's not.
We're friends of his channel.
Yeah, we're fans of his channel. Yes,
We're not
That's what I
friends.
said. Fans,
Okay.
friends, same thing.
Yeah, quick plug in for all of 4 listeners.
All right, Brady. What about you?
My favorite character is the main character, obviously, Queen Butt Stallion. Kidding, no. Seems kind of basic, but I think Tiny Tina was the standout of this game. You just get so much personality in pretty much every moment of the game. You just get a constant chatter of her, and I didn't hear any like repeated lines or anything. It was all fresh and new stuff for the entire game from her, which was fantastic. The other character that I really liked that wasn't like a main character, was an actual character in the Bunkers and Badasses game, was that pirate. I can't remember his name.
Bones
He's
Threewood.
the skeleton. Bones Threewood. You help him reconcile with his rival captain / lover,
Oh yeah,
and then you help him save his lover, and they ride off into the sunset together as ghosts when they're freed from their skeleton bodies. It was a great little mini story that was partially part of the main quest, partially side quests. But I just loved his character. I'm a sucker for a good pirate story.
If we're including side characters, I can't believe I almost forgot, but the best companion in the entire game is obviously the Demi-Lich, having some of the best one-liners in the entire game. Like, I just absolutely love him saying, "I will not become a parenthetical." I could listen to that all day. I think it's hilarious.
If we're talking best companions, this is not a companion that you get to keep. This is just a companion in a side mission. Little Pookie, the baby
Oh,
horse
yes.
thing, is the
I
best
love Little
companion.
Pookie.
No, I will not listen to any.
his owner's a little shit though.
His owner is terrible. He is a good boy. She, he.
I think it's a he. I was pretty sure it was
Ambiguous
stated
at
as
this
a he in the
point.
game.
He murdered a lot of people, but he's a good boy.
So I do want to point out that Ashley Birch, the lady who does Tiny Tina, did a fantastic job as well. Like you said, I think my favorite character, I have to give props to Andy Samberg, and the only reason I pick him over my second pick being Torg is because Torg wasn't in the game enough for like him to like really stand out as much as I would like to.
He had the best quest, though.
Yeah, but Andy Samberg, like he delivers on the I just want to be the hero. I just want to do the hero stuff in D&D. He does a really good job at it. He has some hilarious lines the entire time, and he's like just a nice like. I mean, him and Wanda Sykes are pretty much companions, even though they're like technically like overworldly compared to your character. But they're just great companions to have throughout the thing, and I really enjoyed Valentine and how he's just always like he's always trying to get the last word in, and I don't know, I just felt he was really funny. And then the other small shout out to Torg. I loved the Bard Barbarian, and how every single time because they dumbed it down to be a teen game, Torg is the one that probably cusses the most in the entire Borderlands series. Every single time that he cursed, he did a little lute riff and the first time you meet him, his loot's broken, and you have to fix it. So it's a like a shitty little twing or plang whenever he does it every single time, and it's hilarious that while his loot is broken, it sounds like an actual broken loot, and then as soon as you fix it, it sounds like an actual like a guitar.
Yeah, while we're talking about Torg, can we talk about the fact that you nuke the ocean in this game?
That is a callback from Borderlands 2.
That's a throwback?
Yes. So in the actual Bunkers and Badasses DLC for Borderlands 2, Torg tries to send you on a side quest to go blow up the fucking ocean. And then Lilith says, "You can't do that. That's impossible." And then tells you to scratch that side quest, go do something else. And in this game, you actually do it. And I found that to be the most rewarding thing in the entire game. And the first time I saw it, I laughed until I was in tears. And then the second time I saw it, it was still equally as rewarding. I just loved it.
I never played the original Bunkers and Badasses DLC, so I missed that. I still thought it was an amazing quest, though.
All right, let's get into some of the, I guess, game mechanics, like what classes everyone played and everything. I'm pretty sure Liam has made more than 3 characters, but Brady, we'll start with you since I know that you've only made the one currently.
I've only made the one character. My character is a Graveborn with a Clawbringer subclass. I am full companion damage. I have the Demi-Lich. I have the skill that lets you spawn Hydras as a kill skill maxed out, and the skill that does companion damage maxed out. I walk into a fight, I kill one guy, spawn a Hydra, and then my Demi-Lich and my Dragon kill people and spawn more Hydras, and then I just sit back and watch everything die without me pulling the trigger once. It is a fantastic build. I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun if you like companion classes. I spec'd into spell damage because I always play mages in any game that I can play a mage. So it's real fun to just let your companions do all the work while you sit back and toss a fireball or lots of thunder at people.
I also played my class was also more based on the skills and spells more than gunplay. I think this is actually the first time I've done that in a Borderlands game. I would have to think back just to be sure, but for this one I went Clawbringer as my primary so I could get my little dragon because you know me guys, I love my dragons. And then I multi-classed into the Spore Warden, so I was also running a companion build. However, I also was going nothing but elemental damage. Because I pretty much became Thor with a dragon on his side because I went with the hammer skill that you can throw the hammer, and I got it all the way up to where there's a shock field around it, as well as whenever you throw it, it does fire lightning bolts from the sky on random enemies and everything, as well as my little dragon flying around, shooting people with the if he kills someone with fire, it lets out a lightning orb that tracks people. If he kills someone with lightning, it lets out a fire orb that tracks people and everything. So I was solely focused on elemental damage. And then I had my little mushroom boy, Cake. He was doing all the poison damage for me and everything. And I thought it was really funny because it shows their ass on the mushrooms if you notice. And I swear, I went to go on my stream every single time I turned to look at Cake. I would interact with him, and he'd do something cute, and then he'd turn around and show me his ass, and I'm just like, "Why you got to do this, man? I'm on stream, please." It was really funny. I really enjoyed both the companions, and the elemental build was really, really good. I think the only weapon that I probably used an adequate amount is there's this it can vary between Hyperion and one other manufacturer, but it's a corrosive beam weapon that
That's
after you hit
Dahlia.
them for a certain amount of time, it automatically tracks.
That's Dahlia.
And
It's the doll manufacturer for this game.
I also found Hyperion versions of it.
Oh.
They're called something different, but they're pretty similar. But I would run that weapon and literally just unload a clip, throw my hammer, call in my Calamity. All is Ice Calamity, by the way. I don't know why, I just liked it. Call in my Calamity spell, and then my Wyvern and Spore Warden do the rest. What about you, Liam?
So, I probably have the most time in this game so far. I've at least attempted to start every class so that way I could progress the story enough for all of them and just rotate in and out whatever subclass I want to work with it. But the 3 characters that I have at level 40, my first one being a Clawbringer with a Berserker. I definitely found it to be the tankiest combination, obviously because it's the 2 tanks, but it also had a heavy damage output because you get your frost damage from your Berserker, and then you get lightning and fire damage from your Clawbringer. So I could melt through anything, just so long as they weren't resistant to either of the 3. My second character I did with Trenton was a Spellweaver mixed with Graveborn, and I just went with the double hex so that way I could constantly keep my kill skills active with the Graveborn and just constantly have spell cooldown. Just keep on casting spells, keep doing massive spell crit damage, and I would just annihilate things with like the frost spikes that ricochet between enemies. And I found that to be the best for ad clear. In terms of actual boss damage, I can't get it to work, but eventually I'll get it. And then the third character that I got to level 40 was a Spore Warden with the Graveborn, and that's my companion build, and that is probably the most fun build for me to play right now, just simply because you have 2 companions with your classes, and then with the Dark Hydras, you can spawn in like 5 of them if you have the right class mod, and you can also just keep stacking your companion damage with, what was the name of the skill? It was Faithful Thralls, where you get like 72% additional damage for every companion that you have. So, like Brady was saying, I walk into a room, me and my companions kill one thing, and then it just snowballs, and we just constantly spawn in Dark Hydras and obliterate everything in the arena.
Nice. Something also that like we haven't addressed yet is like stats in this game. Like you actually get the stats from D&D thrown into this game,
Like a character sheet.
Yeah, they don't seem that relevant at first until you start getting like really high in them, and then they're like, obviously because like they stack, so eventually you'll get out to where you're putting out a crap ton of damage. I don't remember what each of them does specifically. Liam, do you remember?
Off the top of my head, I can give a best assumption. Strength is crit damage. Dexterity is crit chance. Intelligence is spell cooldown. Wisdom is status effect damage. Attunement is ability cooldown. And then I think there was Constitution provides health and ward capacity. If there's something else I'm forgetting, I don't know.
I think that's it. I know D&D only has 6, but we don't have a charisma.
No, in this game there's no charisma.
Yeah, there's no charisma stat in it, so it's replaced by the attunement one.
It would be hard to kind of make it make sense for this game because it's like, what would it really be applicable to in terms of stats?
Yeah, and there were only a couple of missions where you actually like had some different options between what you could do.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely
Um,
hilarious to seduce the drawbridge. That was pretty fucking funny.
yeah. Um, seducing the drawbridge, as well as there was one quest where you had to do some evil stuff, and you could either choose like one option or the other, and like one would be severely worse. Like one is like stepping on the grass, another one is like stopping this romantic couple by killing them with an anchor.
Yeah, quite polar opposites, but
Yeah.
technically
Tina
evil.
tried to make you feel bad for choosing the least worst option.
I think it
You stepped on
was,
the grass and the guard retired because no one respected his authority and committed suicide 3 months later.
or the guy that sat on a whoopee cushion and then everybody called him like Farty Frank or something. And then little did you know he had IBS, and then he left the village and was immediately killed by some brigands or whatever. And it was just, wow, these are truly the consequences of my own actions, aren't they?
I was gonna say, or the in the mission where you seduce the drawbridge, I went and every option I had to seduce is what I chose. I chose to seduce, and you get like a goblin companion that you can seduce the gate guard, and through the whole mission, they're just talking to you about, oh, we're gonna go live our life together and move into this house by ourselves and all this stuff. And at the end of the mission, you have to like break their heart. Like the last mission, the last task in that mission is to break up with them before you leave, and you just hear them crying the whole time. Tina gets her revenge if you try to cheese her game.
What about locations? What was y'all's favorite location of the game?
My favorite location kind of flops between the Beanstalk area, and I definitely did like, it was the area after you fought uh, Bones Three Wood's romantic interest. It was the depths or something, where it's like you fought the snake ladies.
Yeah, when
I
you're like in the deep sea trench.
Yeah, I like that area simply because I thought the boss at the end of the area was definitely the coolest boss in the game. Like, I really like Dragon Lord as a boss, but it has its mechanics that I thought were annoying. But I definitely thought Drill was like the coolest, like aesthetically pleasing, because I like the Cthulhu esque boss. But the Beanstalk area I like because it had pretty memorable quests. It was a very cool location, and it really like I I just really liked the when the beanstalk was still a bean, and the first thing he says, "Now take me somewhere so I can germinate," and I'm like, "Oh, that's like awkwardly aggressive, but let's see what happens. Nothing could possibly go wrong." And then, little did you know, you just ruined the entire town's livelihood because now they're up in the sky, and what are they gonna do about it? And then even after you beat the boss, they're still stuck up there. So their lives are ruined, all because of your
To be
choices.
to be entirely fair, you did ruin their lives before you planted the bean because they were like a fishing village. Like they
And
were
then you
right on
blew
the
up the
coast
ocean.
there,
That's
and then you
right.
blew up the ocean.
Oh my god, that's even worse. That town can't catch a break.
There's an argument to be made that we are not the hero of this story
Oh, definitely
with how
not.
much blowing up shit we did.
I mean, the Dragon Lord constantly makes reference to that. Like, you know how in like the second or third mission where you go to the front gates of Brighthoof and you destroy one of the catapults, and the Dragon Lord says, "Those catapults take hundreds of goblin hours to make. I'm creating jobs out here. What are you doing?" And I thought that was great.
All right, Brady. What about your location?
I also really loved the deep sea trench, the unfathomable depths, very much. That was one of my favorite spots. I really loved the level with the skeleton elevator with the Wastard, where the whole thing was you were trying to make an elevator out of a giant skeleton. That was a really fun area just because you used a jaw as an elevator. And also it was a really epic feeling location. The spectacle of that massive skeleton, what kind of skeleton was that? Why are there crystals growing out of it? What's going on there? That was probably my favorite location.
And how like the entire time you're like weaving in between each side and slowly like climbing up his spine to a point to where you can finally like fix the elevator.
Yeah, it was incredible.
So I think my favorite area had to be the pyramid itself. Because whenever you get to the pyramid, you can tell like there's something a little bit off on it. It has these like crazy wires and everything. Like it's a little bit more futuristic than the rest of the game is with the whole fantasy setting, and there are these wires going all the way up to it, and like this is how the Dragon Lord's getting his power and everything, and he's trying to like siphon powers to be able to stop you and become not an actual D&D character, but actually like change the campaign and make it his world instead. He's like essentially trying to overthrow Tiny Tina, and like the entire time there's this like nice electronic beat to it and everything, whereas the rest of the game has been all fantasy like and everything. It really feels like you're in a dangerous area, like you're not supposed to be here, like you're in enemy territory as soon as you get here, because it's like an immediate change from what the rest of the game has been. And it's like really cool how they just like they made it look so futuristic while still keeping the fantasy aspect of the game as a whole.
Let's talk about bosses and what we
Yeah,
thought our
yeah.
favorite.
Oh boy. I got some things to say about the bosses, to be honest.
All right, so I'm gonna start with. I think my favorite boss actually comes post game in one of the Chaos Chambers. If you do one of the Chaos Chambers, there are these like puzzles that'll sometimes appear that you got to do to unlock a boss at the end of the Chaos run and everything.
Yeah, the hidden raid
And
bosses.
yeah, like like their actual raid bosses and everything. And though I haven't fought all of them yet, I think my favorite of them is still Nidhogg. Oh, not Nidhogg, Bunhog. And it's this giant, like, construct centipede like boss that has like an orb that he uses as a searchlight, and it's a really unique mechanic where it only damages you if you're looking at the light whenever it passes over you. So if you look away, you can like avoid a solid bit of the damage from it and everything. And you're fighting them in this giant sandstorm and everything, and like it's just a really cool boss in my opinion. I do have to say my runner-up is Dragon Lord, simply because uh none of y'all's is the Dragon Lord, right?
Right.
No.
All right, all right. Mine's the Dragon Lord because there's an homage to right like just a couple of minutes before you fight him and everything. Tiny Tina tries to pull this like twist narrative or something before she actually like is okay with ending the campaign. Where it's like you kill his long lost love and everything, and then next thing you know, there's a giant dragon in the sky with the Dragon Lord that's part of the boss fight, and you're just like, oh shit! It's funny that she like that was literally just made, but at the same time, oh shit!
Yeah, I love that part of the fight.
Go on.
So I don't know if this was my favorite boss. This is definitely the boss that killed me the most. There is a quest in the Beanstalk area where you go help a wizard with his apprentices who have locked him in his house, and it makes you tiny.
Foolish apprentices.
When you get through that, it's just a standard skeleton, but because you're tiny and it's big, it's a whole boss fight thing. I died so many times because number one, there's a lot of like missiles that track you that are hard to avoid. It's not, and there isn't any cover in that arena. It's just an open arena. You're getting hit with missiles and pulses that are pretty easy to jump over. And there aren't any spawns, like any mobs that spawn for revives. So if you go down, you just die.
Well,
It probably took me like 10 to 15 revives before I figured out how to beat that boss.
I'm a have to tell you something. Periodically in that boss fight, he summons these pink orbs in the sky that will heal him. If you shoot those, they can revive you.
They can revive you?
Yeah. If you
Oh, god damn it.
yeah.
15 lives wasted.
I knew
Years
that
of
healed him and
academy
that killing
training
them stopped him
wasted.
from healing.
Yeah. I
I didn't
think
know they revive you.
yeah. I think he might also spawn some like mushroom enemies in there, but I definitely have revived myself off those pink orbs.
I never once saw a mushroom. A mushroom never attacked me in that room. So I
Never
don't know
mind then. I'm probably thinking of something
what
else.
happened there.
I don't know.
You may be right, and my game was just weird or something, but that never happened for me, unfortunately.
I definitely thought that boss fight was interesting, though. Like a whole different perspective on just a standard enemy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a fantastic quest, being tiny.
I definitely wish it was a Chaos Chamber boss. That would be cool.
All right, Liam, what about you? What's your favorite boss?
So my favorite boss is definitely Drill, the Chained, I think, but he was the boss at the end of the Unfathomable Depths, where it was just a giant Cthulhu monster, and he had multiple phases: one for fire, one for lightning, and then one for I can't remember if he had another phase beyond that. I think he had his intro phase, his fire phase, and then lightning. But I thought for scale, he was a big, intimidating boss. I thought it was cool. And I thought a lot of his moves were pretty interesting, except in like his fire stance, where it's like literally he only shows up to like one side of the map or the other, and then every now and then he'll punch the ground. So it's just too easy. But I just think a lot of the bosses in this game had too many immunity to damage phases that I found annoying. And this boss didn't. It was just you're running through the phases. So it's like you could do a full damage check on this boss and just completely dump damage and not have to worry about an immunity phase. And that was good.
Yeah, to be fair, because of how the game was made, a lot of the bosses are like just tied to story, so they have to hit their story beats before their immunity phase is over. So, like, I think that's a good majority of why a lot of them have so many immunity phases. If I don't remember 100%, but I'm pretty sure like most of the side quest ones didn't have as many immunity phases as the main storyline bosses.
No, and like. The one I'm mainly talking about is like the Lastard. I think that's like my least favorite boss because, for one, while he still has health, he can summon this spectral Aegis that replenishes his shield, and I always have a hard time killing that spectral Aegis and then depleting his shield again so that I can do any amount of damage at all. And he just does so much damage. But the only boss where it was like the immunity to damage was kind of cool is when you were fighting the Dragon Lord. And it was like you had to swap between attacking the Dragon Lord and attacking Bernadette. And I just thought that was a cool gimmick. That's where it was acceptable for me. But I think in other instance was just... I think it really was just the Lastard and Vorkanor, the mechanical dragon that you fight with the GTFO. I didn't like that boss. That's like my least favorite boss is Vorkanor, just because like I felt it was lazy. The immunity phase was kind of annoying, and the fact that you really can only do damage if you hit the crit spot was kind of meh.
Yeah, the Vorkanor fight kind of felt like the something 9000 boss fight from Borderlands 3. I can't remember.
The Agonizer 9000.
That it felt like a rushed version of that. Honestly, like
it felt recycled.
They were trying
for sure.
They were trying to like recreate like that boss fight, and that boss fight is actually like one of my favorites from Borderlands 3. So that one did a good job. I felt like they just like with Vorkanor, they just missed a few beats, and
I mean, they missed a really awesome opportunity. Like, imagine if it was like a fully mechanical dragon, like instead of just the head. It would have been a way cooler boss fight. Because, like, to be honest, I don't think there was a single like dragon boss fight. Like, there wasn't. Like, unless we're including Dragon Lord and Bernadette, but it would have been cool if like the actual dragon boss fight was like an actual dragon or a mechanical dragon. Just to fit with like the fantasy aspect. But the fact that it was just the head I just felt was lackluster.
yeah, I mean, I guess dragons are like, whenever you think fantasy, you think dragons. So I can see why they strayed away from it a little bit because like they're like a little overdone. But at the same time, I'm also with you with a fucking dragon boss would have been great. Then again, we also at the end of the Borderlands 2 DLC, the raid boss was actually 4 dragons. So like they had kind of already done that before. So maybe they were trying to see if they could get by without it.
I mean, with DLC, they could always just add a dragon boss fight later on.
Yeah, that as well. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands has this post game thing that makes it a lot easier to grind loot than I think any other Borderlands game has done, other than just throwing your face at a raid boss over and over again, pretty much. They made it interesting because throughout the game you can fight these camps in the overworld. Just a real quick synopsis of the overworld. So in order to get from area to area, you travel in this overworld where it's kind of like your character's piece on the board, and you're just able to move. It's like they make it comical and funny because you got a super big head and everything. There's little bottle caps that you can knock over to make shortcuts on the map and everything. There's a mission that's one of the paths is blocked by a Cheeto, but Tiny Tina says it's not a Cheeto, it's a alien meteorite, and as well as there are the lucky die that you can find throughout the game in it as well. And there's side quests that happen actually like just in the overworld as itself, and it's just like a really unique thing, and like it's kind of a like a break from the looting and shooting, and instead you're just walking around. Like I think this is definitely the part that's mostly geared towards kids, is because it's just you're walking around the world exploring stuff. And so in the overworld, you can have there's these camps that you can go and encounter, and it'll make you do a wave type fight that'll either be 1 or 2 things long, and you just get loot out of it. So the Chaos Chamber takes that and amplifies it, and we'll go more into that in just a second after these boys give their thoughts on the overworld.
I loved the overworld. I thought it was a real fun break from the constant shooting. One of my main gripes with Borderlands, and this is just something that's personal to me about the style of Borderlands games, is it's just you shoot and then you keep walking and then you shoot more. There's a lot of great story and stuff thrown in there, but that is the basic format of the games, is just a bunch of shooting. I thought the overworld gave me a great break to just do something else, see a fun little bobblehead character run around the map and explore without having to constantly have my gun in front of me shooting. Loved it. There were a lot of really neat exploration areas. You got a lot of abilities that let you unlock different parts of the map, and it was real fun to backtrack and see new areas in the places you had already been. I thought it was a neat, fun little thing to add to the game.
Liam?
So, I believe the overworld to be a neat and interesting mechanic in that I just really liked the idea of it being this kid's like playset, like the little bits and pieces of the board being like bottle caps or bridges, cheese puffs or barriers, and you would find the occasional like book that creates like this what they in the world called like monuments or something. Just like every little piece of like real world is a part of this world as just a fantasy object. And I found that to be quite clever and creative. And while it was a break from the constant monotony of just action, I felt like for the most part, there were like only so many collectibles and so many things to do. I just think they missed out on an opportunity to really flesh out the overworld and put a little bit more to it. But I do like the aspect that it's just you never run out of encounters, you never run out of fights. You can just go into the overworld, walk through a patch of grass, and then, like Pokemon, there's a battle, and then you could just find an encampment and just challenge the encampment for better loot. And I think that's just an interesting mechanic.
Yeah, I do think that in future replays of the game, like people aren't going to pay much attention to it or anything, but for definitely the first playthrough, it was definitely a unique and nice surprise. All right, and so let's go into the post game, the Chaos Chambers. We'll start with you, Brady, because you've had the least amount of experience with it. What are your thoughts?
I thought it was a really fun way to add post-game content. Obviously, it's not a massive content drop. Like, there's not a lot of quests to do, but it is a fun gameplay loop of going through different combat scenarios, getting to give challenges to yourself or bonuses, and just kind of paying your way and trying to get the most crystals as possible. I've definitely gotten a lot of good submachine guns. Um, I love that you can choose the type of gear that you want to get. Like if you want to focus on just one type of gun, you can spend all your crystals there instead of just the random loot drop that you normally get. I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. So can you give a basic explanation for it, and we'll have me and Liam clarify on any things that you have.
So the basic premise of the Chaos Chambers is very similar to the random encounters that you get on the maps or when you go into smaller dungeons in the overworld, where you go into a portal, you spawn into a arena with a lot of landscape and obstacles in the way, and you fight a bunch of enemies until they're all dead, and then you get a reward, and you move on to the next section, which is a different arena, and you fight more, and that constant gameplay loop. Except once you've cleared an arena, you get I believe it's a randomly spawned chance of one of two options. You either get to choose a hazard for yourself where you can make the game slightly more difficult by either having the enemies do more damage or you have less health or something to that effect, or you can give yourself a bonus. Like you can spend crystals to get more gun damage or more spell damage or faster movement speed. And as you move through, you get to stack more, they call curses on yourself to hamper your ability to proceed, but it also gives you a higher crystal spawn rate, and you also get the chance to purchase more buffs for yourself. And at the end, once you've finished this series of combat encounters, all the crystals that you've stored up from beating bosses and clearing levels, you get to spend to get loot rewards. So you have a bunch of statues in a room, and you can pay X amount of crystals to spawn a bunch of high tier loot for each specific category. So they have a category for each type of gun and also each type of gear that you can have.
So yeah, I'll clarify just a couple points that you made. So every time you do one of these fights, the portal that you select determines what happens at the end of the next one. So, for instance, there's a symbol that represents the Dragon Lord. There's a symbol that represents Butt Stallion. There's a symbol that represents a regular chest, and then there's a symbol that represents a Chaos chest. So, the Dragon Lord will give you a curse. Butt Stallion will give you a buff. The regular chest gives you regular loot and stuff. Chaos chests give you chaos crystals. So and your goal is to just get as many crystals as possible for the in-game loot room. So the best way to do that is to always focus going Dragon Lord first, then the Chaos Chest, and then Butt Stallion afterwards, just because a buff is probably better than some of the loot that you're going to get out of the regular chest at that point, since you are farming for Chaos stuff anyway. But yeah, so after you finish all these, you usually get a boss fight and everything. Another thing that you can do, there are different types of this. Goes into them trying to keep the game alive. There's a featured run that you can do that I think they change weekly, if I'm correct. And that one's will be a specific encounter with specific stuff in it for you, so you'll just go through that normally. There's a short run, which is probably like 3 to 4 rooms before you fight the boss. And then there's a long run. I haven't done a long run, so I don't know how many exactly it is. But the ones I've been focusing the most are the Chaos level ones. Because the Chaos level ones, if you go to the max Chaos level that you are, every time you complete one, you go up a Chaos level. So, and every time you increase your Chaos level, it increases your chance at finding chaotic gear by 4%, and chaotic gear is usually better than the rarity that it drops at. So for instance, if you find a chaotic blue shield, it'll probably be better than any other blue shield you find at that at that level and such. So you can sit there and build your chaos rank all the way up to 20, to where you have a 100% chance at finding chaotic gear. And so you'll always you'll just be getting better loot every time that you do it. And then they actually released an update to the game to where chaos level goes up to 35 now, and you can find some I don't remember the exact name of the gear, but Liam will probably cover that. But there are also these hidden raid bosses that you can find in the chaos chambers, that you have to find a puzzle in some of these encounters, do the puzzle, and then you'll fight a raid boss at the end. And there's even a secret raid boss where you have to get all 3 puzzles correct, fight the chaos chamber boss, into all 3 raid bosses, into the secret boss without any sort of healing or ammo. And it can get kind of nuts. Liam?
So, I definitely view the Chaos Chamber as basically an unlimited amount of playability, in that as the game progresses, they're probably going to release more and more Chaos levels in different rarities or types of gear, because just recently they bumped up the Chaos Chamber level from 20 to 35. Some people were displeased with this change. Other look at it as like, well, it's a next grind. So from Chaos level 1 and up, you will constantly increase your chances of dropping chaotic gear. Basically what that means is for every piece of gear that drops, it has a percentage chance of dropping as that type, either chaotic, volatile, or primordial. And with each increase, it increases in its base stats. So like attack, like your fire rate, your damage, your reload speed, things of that nature will increase with that rarity. And I haven't gotten a piece of volatile or primordial gear yet. I've really only gotten up to chaos level 8, but that's just because I'm not the best at creating builds. But I do see it as a fun way to try and grind to the next level. And it is very reminiscent of like Diablo, where they had greater rifts and they had torment levels, where once you beat the game, the only thing you can really progress to is the next torment level and try to get faster and better rift times. And in Borderlands 2, the next best thing is to try and get faster raid boss clears. So people are going to be doing chaos runs just to get to the next raid boss and try to beat it in the fastest time. And in terms of like the playability of these raid bosses, the challenges aren't too difficult to actually get to them. But once you get higher and higher into the chaos levels, the challenges just it's a battle of attrition, having enough ammunition and not being absolutely frustrated with the difficulty of the chaos chamber.
I almost feel like lifesteal is a mandatory if you're gonna face all three of these bosses back to back into the maker.
Yeah, some amount of taking this and like health regen is almost a prerequisite. So like the strongest characters for that are going to be your Berserker or your Graveborn, but I definitely feel that the raid bosses are a fair and wonderful challenge, and I don't think they really stack or compare to like the invincible bosses from previous Borderlands games, but they are definitely interesting. And I've only really done or attempted 2 of them. I think there's 3, maybe 4 in total.
So, so there are three, and then there's the secret one. The secret one being the maker herself.
Yeah.
We fought Bunhog, and then whatever the Franken dog is, I think.
The Barkenstein. Barkenstein. The one in the jungle.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Barkenstein.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I do think they're comparable to the invincible bosses in health, but not in damage output. They don't have the capability of wiping you quite as quickly as invincible bosses, which I feel like actually makes them like quite more susceptible and like clearable, even for like casual play.
Yeah, because it's like Terramorphous in Borderlands 2. He could just knock you off the arena and wipe your whole team that way. It was kind of annoying. So it was all about placement. But in this one, it's more or less just knowing how to avoid getting instantly down by specific attacks. Like if you are fighting Barkenstein, he gives certain tells on like where his next attack is going to land. So if he jumps up into the air, the tail is going to land an attack. So you got to move to the left or the right. If he's going to swipe at you with his claw, you just need to back up. And it's just, it's definitely a lot easier than invincible bosses in that respect. But
yeah, I felt like they took kind of a hint from like Souls-like bosses, and they actually like. I wouldn't say there are tells. Yeah. I wouldn't say there are tells in any other Borderlands bosses, except for actually Borderlands 3. They kind of did start doing it a little bit, and it felt like more like Souls-like bosses. But in this one, like there are ways to, instead of it being a complete bullet hell, there are ways to actually dodge the attacks in this one if you know what you're doing. Like what Liam said about Barkenstein, if he does the right claw, you're supposed to duck. If he backs up to do the tail, you're supposed to jump over it, and if he jumps up into the air, if you're fast enough, you can just run under him and it'll avoid it. So, like, there are ways to actually completely avoid damage, which normally in Borderlands bosses isn't a thing.
But I definitely feel like the loot in the Chaos Chambers is very rewarding. And like Brady was saying, is you could, if you just had a specific piece of gear in mind that you're trying to get, you could just farm for crystals and then only use your crystals for like a pistol, an SMG, or an assault rifle. And a little thing to note about the Chaos Chamber is that for a legendary piece of equipment to actually spawn in the Chaos Chamber, you will have had to have found it in the outside world. So it would behoove a lot of players to go and fight bosses that have dedicated legendary drops that they might want to farm, so that way it can show up in the Chaos Chamber. But there's also set legendary gear that only shows up in the Chaos Chamber, so keep that in mind.
Okay. So you can end up expanding the pool if you go and fight the rest of the.
As far as I understand, yes, that's how I've and how it's been explained to me watching several YouTube videos is that you actually have to go and be a boss or a mini boss in like one of those obelisk areas. You remember the obelisk challenges
Yeah.
that you had to do where when you beat those obelisks, they spawn a mini boss. You kill the mini boss, they have dedicated loot themselves. And I think they have a chance to drop mission reward items. I could be wrong, but with the newest update, vendors now have the possibility of doing it. So, but I think a lot of legendary gear is better than most mission reward items, but it's just a great way to farm gear. That's the end statement for that.
Any final thoughts?
Just my final thoughts on the game. Overall gameplay, I thought was fantastic. Will Arnett was definitely the best part of the show for me. And while Trenton may disagree, I think it stands at the very least above 3, but below 2 in terms of my favorite game of the series. And while there is room for improvement, the game is still only like 2 months old. So I'm eager to see where it goes. But the fact that they have released 2 DLC so far in the time span of 2 months gives me high hopes that they're going to try and keep this game alive until we get Borderlands 4.
Now we're going to go into Brady. What are your final thoughts and rating of the game?
Final thoughts? Like I said in the intro, I think it's an 8 out of 10. I had a great time playing this game. It had a very classic Borderlands sense of humor, which I thought was very enjoyable. I barely noticed that it was toned down ratings-wise. There were a couple of spots like the Torg moment where he didn't swear that I noticed it, but that was almost just as fun because of the interesting ways they played it. I think it's a great addition to the Borderlands franchise. I recommend it.
All right, and as for myself, I did enjoy my time playing through this game. There are a couple of issues with it that, performance-wise, that I think they really need to get fixed and everything. It didn't hit as hard as 2 or 3 for me. However, it did scratch the itch that I've been waiting for a Borderlands game or a new Borderlands game. So I did fairly enjoy it. The fantasy aspect of it is beautiful. Especially with how I've dove into D&D a lot more in the past year. I was actually able to understand a lot of the jokes in this game that a year ago I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have been able to, because I would have been like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about and everything. I still probably would have picked it up back then a year ago, even though I didn't play D&D, but I'm even more happy that I did after experiencing D&D this year, that I did pick it up. So, like I said at the beginning, I would say probably an 8.5 out of 10. I don't think it's quite as good as Elden Ring is, but this one has DLC coming out sooner than Elden Ring, so I can see myself playing this a lot more in the future. But anyway, that's going to do it for us today, guys. I want to thank y'all for joining us. Thank y'all for tuning in. And be sure to come in next time where we'll have Walker back. I think it's just going to be a normal us three, me, Walker, and Brady podcast. And Brady, do you know what we're playing next?
Next time we are playing Tunic. It is an indie game, roguelike. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, listeners, y'all can all, hopefully this will be out reasonably soon, and y'all can all play it with us and send us some questions on our social medias if you have to and everything. So thank y'all once again. Liam, it was a pleasure having you here, and if we have any other games that I feel like you would be a good voice for, I'll be sure to extend the invite again.
Yeah, great having you on the pod.
I'll be happy to rejoin whenever you want. Yeah, it's been great.
That's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank y'all for joining once again, and y'all have a fantastic month. We will see you next time.